Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jean, the Digital Event Manager at Connecting Out and TechSoup New Zealand. We are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges by creating use of technology. Today I'm excited to welcome you to join 10 mistakes to avoid in technology searches and implementations with Stephen Molly from Fundraising Force. And later on, Stephen will introduce himself. Before we begin, we'll start with a bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted. If you have any technical issues, please type into the questions box and I'll be here to assist you. If you have any questions during the sections, please also type into the questions box and Stephen will get them answered by the end. We really encourage you to ask as many questions as possible. There's no silly questions, but please note that your comments and questions will not be up here to the entire group. And now the webinar is being recorded. You get the recording link and the presentation deck in 1 to 2 business days. And finally, there's a very short survey at the end. Please help us to complete that. All right, now I'll hand over to Stephen for today's section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. I've got a kind of a funny throat today, so you'll see me taking some cough drops and also some water throughout the webinar today, and I apologize for that, but I guess that's the way of the world these days. So again, my apologies, but I just wanted you to know why I sound this way. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you today. I thought I would introduce myself a bit at the beginning, and then I'll get into the agenda and the actual presentation for the day. So what I hope to do in terms of introduction is I just want to talk to you a little bit about my professional experience. So I'm a fundraiser by training, and what I mean by that is I'm a fundraising practitioner and have been over the last 35 years. Mostly in the United States, although about 8 years ago, I started this firm called Fundraising Force here in Asia Pacific, and we offer 2 types of services. On the one hand, it's fundraising strategy. So we oftentimes get asked to help develop fundraising strat plans, implementation of those plans and those sort of things. And then on the other hand, we focus on technology, which is why I'm here today. So I don't have to tell you that's a really interesting mix, and that's why I like it so much. There's never a dull moment working with various charities. Part of our technology services include CRM searches and other technology platform searches, as well as implementations of those technology platforms. So I guess that experience mirrors what I'm actually going to speak with you about today. So in terms of the agenda, I thought I'd start out by offering you some assumptions that I've made creating this presentation, and then talk to you about first mistakes that are made in technology searches, and then I'm going to turn to mistakes made in technology implementations. I'll tell you that the title says the 10 mistakes. I couldn't limit it to 10, so I've got far more than that. We will get through every one of them in detail, but I could not limit it to 10. I tried really hard to do 5 each, and I couldn't. So I've got a more limited set of mistakes that are typically made in searches, and I've got a far broader list in terms of implementations. I'll also talk to you today about the costs of those mistakes should they occur. And more importantly, I'm going to talk to you about the mitigation strategies or steps to avoid them from occurring. And then, as Jean said, I'm going to take questions. And if we don't get through all of the questions today, I'm happy to submit them in writing and Jean can send those out to you. We will provide this PowerPoint along with the recording at the end of the webinar. All right, so let me just start out by saying thank you to all of you. I recognize that this is, for most of you, your lunch hour. So I just want to say thank you for spending midday with us. We really appreciate it. And we really appreciate the time and the effort to attend. All right, in terms of the assumptions that I made as I was writing today's webinar, I believe that probably most organizations represented here today might be conducting a search for new technology. I also believe that most organizations represented here today are implementing the technology that they chose. And I thought we might start out by testing those assumptions, and Jean has helped me set up two polls. The first one is your organization in the process of searching for new technology? So Jean, I'll let you launch that poll. Thank you.
Sure, no worries, it's launched.
Give you a minute to answer that.
Yep, we got about 60% voted, 70. Let's wait for a couple of seconds. Okay, looks like all of us have voted. Let me share the result.
All right, thank you. So about a third are not in the process of searching for technology. So perhaps we're going to see the poll results for the next one a bit reversed. So I'll just go to the next poll if that's okay. And it is your organization in the process of implementing new technology?
No worries. It's up.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So all of us voted. So the result is like this.
Yeah, so that could be expected based on the answers for the first question. Okay, good. There's something here for everybody today. So I'll let you close that poll. Thank you. Thank you, Jean, for running those polls for us. All right, so I'm gonna get right into the mistakes. And as I said, I've got fewer highlighted for technology searches than I do for technology implementations, but it doesn't make them any less severe. I would say that we'll go through them one by one, and I'll walk you through them. So in terms of technology searches, the first one that I highlight here is not considering the functional requirements of our end users. So oftentimes we've seen the technology searches that have gone sideways or have gone sour, if you will, have been done by IT departments who think that they understand the functional requirements of the end users, so they kind of go at it alone, or business owners who think that they understand all the functional requirements of their business, and they really don't. So it's really important that you consider all of the functional requirements of your end users. The next one is choosing technology that cannot grow with your organization. So there are some legacy products in the market that may not be fit for purpose for your organization. And so you want to choose technology that might seem a bit big for you at this point in time, but as your organization grows, you're going to grow into it. I like to say this reminds me of when I was growing up. My mother always seemed to buy me clothing that was too big for me. Well, she did that because she knew that I was going to grow and grow into it. And it's kind of a nice analogy. A lack of integrations. And so this one I put on the list because you need to consider whether or not the technology you're choosing might integrate with your finance system, might integrate with your services type systems, might integrate with other types of systems. If you work for a school or university, the student system, things like that. So this is a really important one, and it's oftentimes overlooked. And instead, oh, well, our fundraising department really needs a CRM, so we're gonna go get one that just does fundraising functionality. that particular CRM doesn't necessarily integrate with other solutions out in the market. So it's important to consider the integrations that you might want in the long run. A lack of defined business processes. So understanding your business processes across the organization is really important. I oftentimes like to document those for organizations as we're gathering their functional requirements. We can do them at the same time and do what I sort of say, kill two birds with one stone. Not a nice thing to say, but you get the analogy there as well. A lack of defined KPIs. What are we trying to achieve by adopting this new technology? Could that better be achieved by maximizing the technology that we've got today? Many organizations think that the technology set that they've got has been maxed out. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe it's worth looking at that first before you start to go out to market and look at other technology platforms. All right, so I said earlier that I had a short list for technology searches, and there are only 5. I'm sure that many of you might suggest that you wish that you'd have done X, Y, or Z, and I invite you to put that in the chat because we'll cover those at the end when we do the Q&A. So by all means, please do share lessons that you learned from your search, those of you that are now implementing technology. All right, let's go to the long list, which is technology implementations. This list actually covers 2 slides, and it's quite extensive. So the first is a lack of a strategy. Many organizations don't sit down and plan ahead of the implementation. They don't strategize and say, okay, this is what we're going to do at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. These are the goals that we're trying to achieve. These are the outcomes that we expect, and that's really important to do at the outset. I oftentimes like to spend a month or 6 weeks with my project teams to really get our ducks in a row before we start to implement with the technology partner, and I think that's really important. The next one is a lack of user adoption. So you can go through this entire journey with your team, and if your end users do not adopt the technology, they're going to go back to bad habits, and that would be a big mistake in the end. So you want to make sure that you bring your users on board throughout the course of the implementation, and you start to educate them about the importance of the investment that your organization's making. You bring them along on the journey and help them learn about the technology and how it's going to supplement the business, and then you get the user adoption. The next one is a lack of vision. I like to have a steering committee who sit above the project team. You all would have seen that in my last webinar that I did for Connecting Up. It's important vision for the technology project. They are the ones that really should force the strategy and the overall vision to be widely known across the organization. They're also the committee that are going to keep their eye on whether or not we're achieving that vision that they set out at the beginning of the project. The next one is considering the project is all about the buttonology. So it's not an official word, but I like the word buttonology. It's not just if you hit F2, the technology does X, Y, or Z. This project is about how we're going to transform our business. It's about how we're going to turn our business processes upside down and inside out. How are we going to improve our efficiencies? How are we going to bring streamline those processes over time? So this is not about the technology even, it is about your business and your business processes. Poor planning. So if you don't have a concrete plan and stick to that plan, then the project is likely to go sideways. People are going to be very confused. They're not going to understand the intended outcomes. So you need to make sure that you take 6 weeks or so, maybe 4 weeks if you can do it, and develop a plan, a schedule, and make sure that the tasks in that schedule have dependencies. You stick to those tasks. Now, not everything sticks to schedule. Things happen. Take COVID, for example. That set a lot of projects off course. That's okay. We can adapt. We can be agile. But if we don't have a plan to begin with, our project's going to go sideways. Scope creep. This one is quite common in a project. So new ideas come on board. New staff arrive during the course of a project, and they bring in ideas from their previous organizations. Those are fantastic, but we've already signed off on the scope of work. We can't reopen things. We can't revisit things because with scope creep comes increased costs. And your project manager is held accountable to make sure that we finish the project on time and on budget. We can't do those things if we've got scope creep. So what do you do with those great new ideas? What do you do with those things that we forgot to include in the scope? We document them for a phase 2. They're not going to get lost. They're well documented, but we will attend to them after go live. Lack of training. So oftentimes, excuse me for just a second, oftentimes in a project, we gloss over the training, and we can't do that. So I recommend that we actually train people throughout the course of the project and not just wait until the end. Let's let them get in there and get their feet wet from day one. Let's let them get their feet wet before the technology partner even comes on site and get to know the terminology, the software, offer a glossary to them. Offer ways for them to learn about the technology that they're adopting so they don't reject it at the end, so they're not overwhelmed at the end. A day or two of training at the very end of the project is not enough. Adults learn in bits and pieces. We don't learn in a crash course. Lack of support. It's important for you before you actually start the project to think about how you're going to support the technology after you go live. Are you going to depend upon your technology partner to actually support you, or are you going to have that internal support? Are you going to have another third party support you? I don't know the answer, but it's important for you to think about how you're going to support the project after you go live. Choosing the wrong supplier. It's happened time and time again in this market. People don't spend the time studying the relationship. They're so mesmerized about the Buttonology and the technology, they don't think about the relationship with their supplier partner. And it truly is a partnership. You are getting married, so you need to make sure that you can live with these people. You need to make sure that you're going to be able to work with them for 5 months, 9 months. Some projects go on for 2 years. You need to make sure that they're the right fit culturally for your organization. That's really vital. Choosing the wrong solution. So if you don't spend time also studying the solution and making sure that it matches your functional requirements, are you going to get everything that you want? Probably not. There's no perfect technology platform out there today, but you ought to get 80 or even 90% of what you want. So you need to make sure that you're choosing the right solution. Don't choose a solution, you'll remember from my previous presentations, just because another organization uses it. Doesn't mean it's going to be right for your organization. Choose a solution because it feels like it's the right fit for your functional requirements. Too much too soon. Technology can be overwhelming. I oftentimes say, I bought this MacBook Air. I probably use 40, maybe 45% of the functionality on this MacBook Air. It's fantastic. I know it can do other things, but I'm really focused on that 40% and not on the other 60%. With these technology platforms, you too should focus in on rolling things out as they're needed and not trying to roll everything out at once. You can phase stuff in. That is a perfectly acceptable way to implement technology. You shouldn't try to take on the world because you're going to get overwhelmed. The project will run over budget and run over schedule. So do try to phase things in so that you take on things as you can absorb them, as you've got the appetite. Don't order too much off the menu, so to speak. Having metrics for success is vital, and your steering committee and project team should really set what those metrics are. Those metrics should be shared with your technology supplier so that they know what sort of metrics you're trying to achieve. After all, they're the ones that are going to have to achieve those metrics with you. It's a partnership. All right, I said there were 2 slides, and there are. Here's the second slide. Failing to involve the end users. So this is not just about the functional requirements, but if you don't involve your end users throughout the course of the project, when they get to training, it's going to be overwhelming. And they're going to reject the solution you came up with over the previous 5 to 9 months to 2 years. You don't want that to happen. Instead, you want them along the way to see their work, their ideas, their thoughts come to life in the chosen technology platform. Involving end users in the decision to choose the technology during the search is vital. It's even more vital during the technology implementation. Lack of executive buy-in. We need the executives to buy into this, and we need them to make appearances throughout the course of the discovery, throughout the course of the solution sign-off, throughout the course of the showcases to see the technology building underway, and during the training. You need your execs to participate in the project. Excuse me. Do they have to be there every step of the way? Absolutely not. But do you want them involved throughout the course of the project? Absolutely. So I would involve them definitely on the steering committee, not every member of the executive team, but enough of them. And also remember your execs hold the purse strings. So it's really important that you involve them throughout the course of the project so that they understand why there might be a change request that comes down the pike. Messy data, lack of trusted data. Very sorry about the cough drop, but if I don't do that, I'll be coughing in your ears. So messy data. It's important that you start to clean up your data before your technology partner come in-house to do the discovery sessions. It's never too soon to start on the data. The reason I've got the second clause to that bullet point is many organizations don't pay attention to their data. They migrate the data, and then nobody trusts the data in the solution once it's been migrated. Data is vital. We live and die based on our data. So you want to make sure that it's clean. You take the time to clean it before the migration. Don't make the mistake of saying, we'll do it when we're in the new technology platform. It never gets done. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to move all this junk from my current house to my new house, and I'll clean it up there. I'll get rid of it. I'll send it off to Vinny's or or Salvation Army or what have you. It never happens. You always have those boxes that you never unpack. So get the data clean before you migrate it to the new platform. The next one is about considering this a technology implementation rather than a business implementation. And it really must be considered a business implementation. If we just focus on the technology, we never achieve our goals. And that's why I say it's great to involve people from the IT team in your implementation. We need them. They are bright people and they think about things differently than you and I as members of the business team. But we need to drive the bus. We need to make sure that our requirements make their way into the technology. So make this about a business implementation and not about the technology. If the CRM is not the central focus of the business, you're going to make a huge mistake. So make sure that your technology is the center focus of everything that you do. Make sure that you've got a CRM manager, that's great, but everybody owns a CRM. Everybody's responsible for the CRM. It's not just that CRM manager. The CRM is considered finished at go live. It's never finished. Your technology needs to constantly be enhanced, invested in. It's not done at go live. All right, so those were the mistakes that I decided to highlight today. Now let me talk to you about the costs of those mistakes. So one cost is that the functionality doesn't match our business requirements. So if we don't have our business requirements fully documented, when we go out to search for the technology, when we choose the technology, and when we go through those discovery sessions, then the functionality that is configured by your technology partner is not going to match those business requirements. So that's a huge cost. The second cost is that we outgrow the technology that we chose. This is a big deal. This is a big project. It's a big expenditure. It would be a crime to have to go through this again in another 2 years, 3 years. You generally only want to go through this exercise once every 7 to 10 years. So don't make the mistake of choosing a platform that you're going to outgrow in just a couple of years. Systems don't talk to one another, so this is about the integrations. It's a shame that some technology platforms out there today don't integrate with other systems, or maybe don't integrate in a really rich way. Make sure that the technology platform that you're choosing can fully integrate with a variety of finance systems, with, if you're a university or school, a variety of student systems, how about HR systems, things like that. Look around the business and don't just choose a system because it works for fundraising. Choose a system because it's going to work for the whole business and it also integrates with these other systems. Budget overrun. So many projects go over budget. There might be a perfectly legit reason why we have to spend more money. Maybe something catastrophic happens in the business and we've got to put the project on hold. Or maybe within your organization, new requirements have popped up, a new program, something fantastic has happened, and we didn't have that when we first went out to market. Okay, that's explainable. But you don't want to blow out the budget with new ideas or new staff coming on board that have new ways of doing things and they perhaps don't align with staff who were on board when you first documented your functional requirements. We all have to adapt. and you don't want to have cost overrun because lots of new staff come in throughout the course of the project. Time overrun. So those two are very related, right? You don't want to have a project that goes on forever and you feel like you could be retired before the technology goes live. It's important that you consider whether or not a minimal viable product, whether or not getting 80% of your requirements is good enough, and then we will enhance the technology after go live. That's perfectly acceptable for most organizations. Lack of trust or faith. So I talked about that with the data earlier. You want to make sure that when you go live, people believe the numbers in your system. They trust the system. They've got faith in the system. When they run a report, they can put their hand on their heart and say, this is right. You don't want people questioning the data. You certainly don't want people tracking anything outside of your technology platform, because then the data in your CRM is never going to be right. So you must bring people on board and you must gain their trust throughout the course of the project so that they've got faith in your technology. Low user adoption. I've seen it in many organizations. It's sad. You go through this lengthy project and then the end users don't use it. It's too clunky. There's too many steps. It's not exactly what we wanted. So I'm just going to use my Excel spreadsheet. You don't want that to happen. You've spent thousands of dollars on technology. You want to make sure you get it right. You bring people on board so that they adopt the technology at go live. Mitigation strategies. So how do we manage those risks? So start with your business processes and your functional requirements. I mentioned earlier that these can be done at the same time. Some organizations that I'm working with are choosing to document their business processes up front, and then we move into the functional requirements. That's fine. They can be done at the same time so that you maximize everybody's time. But at the end of the day, some organizations like to do them as separate exercises, and that's okay. The important thing is that you understand your business. And this is the as-is state. It's certainly not going to be the to-be state. So understand how the business is conducted today and document it. There's lots of technology out there where you can document a process map and process steps. I'm not going to endorse a product. I'm just going to tell you that there are many technology platforms out there that do this in a really rich way. Some are quite expensive and some are quite inexpensive. The important thing is that you just do it. Get your processes documented so you understand your business going into this. Involve and engage end users throughout the course of the project. I've said that a few times over the last hour. I think that's really, really important. Choose the correct technology and the right partner. This is a bit like a marriage. You're going into this marriage and you want to make sure that you can be committed for the long term. I won't say 10 years because that's a short marriage, but you want to make sure that you can be committed for the long term. So choose the correct technology platform and the right partner to implement that. There are some partners that there are multiple partners in the market that implement some platforms, and there are also one-to-one relationships, only one partner that implements one technology. So you do have options in the market. You've got a lot more options on a couple of platforms than you do on some, but whatever you choose, you want to make sure it's the right fit for your organization. Engage professional project management. This might sound like a self-serving statement, but no matter who you choose to be your project manager, I think this is really important. Not everybody in your organization will be a good project manager. Not everybody has the time to be a good project manager. It's unfair for you as leaders to say to somebody, oh, you know what, you're really good at planning, you've done our Christmas party, you're really well organized. I think you could lead the technology project. The technology transformation is yours, and I want you to do it on top of your day job. That is the most unfair thing to do to anybody. Don't do that. That's a big mistake. Instead, it's sometimes less expensive to outsource that so that you can involve the person who's really good. You can upskill them, and you can also get the best of both worlds. Focus on the data. So I just wanted to re-stress this one. It's really important. It's vital that we get our data clean going in and we don't move to the new house with those boxes of junk and hope that they sort themselves out after we get to the new home. You want to start with your business processes, but you also want to end with them. These are dynamic documents. They're going to change. Some of them are going to transform during the technology project. So it's important that you end with your business processes and you've got a full package of this is where we started, this is where we ended, and now look at all of the steps that we have saved. Look at the technology that we've integrated. Look at how we've brought all this together. It really will help you to have a final set. I hesitate to use the word final, of your business processes, at least as they were go live. And then train your staff to keep those up to date as things change in the business over time. I'm going to pause now, Jane, with some questions, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you very much, Stephen. If you have any questions, please feel free to type into the questions box and Stephen will get them answered. So I believe there's lots of takeaway in today's section. So if we want to take one or two things, the most important part, what do you think, Stephen, that we can use it straight away?
Sure, I think plan, plan, and plan. You don't have to start your technology project the day after you sign a contract with a technology partner. So I would spend time planning, and I would spend 4 to 6, maybe even 8 weeks. I've got some clients that are spending 8 weeks planning, and they're getting their ducks in a row. And what I mean by that is because I'm project managing these, I'll just speak quite personally here. I know what various technology partners are going to want when they come on board to do the discovery sessions. Therefore, we're getting those variables in order, and we create a folder on a shared drive and just drop stuff in there over time. We're documenting their business processes. We're documenting their data inventory. We're documenting their systems inventory. We're putting together the project infrastructure. So the steering committee, the project team, the subject matter experts, and the end users. We're getting all of that infrastructure together before the technology partner comes on board so that when they come on board, we're ready for them. We're not ahead of the game. We're just where we should be by the time that they come on board.
Lovely. Thank you very much. That's inspiring. And we now got our questions from the audience. So for the project management tools, since we are not for profit organization, we don't have much resources. Do you have any recommendations what kind of softwares we can use in terms of project management?
Sure. I use Smartsheet, and I'll tell you why I use it. I use it for 2 reasons. One, I find it easier than Microsoft Project, yet it has many of the good things that Microsoft Project has. And then the second reason I like it is it's inexpensive. And I have lots of charity clients who use Smartsheet as well. Smartsheet, when you look at it, is essentially a glorified Excel spreadsheet. So if you know Excel, you can figure out Smartsheet. Smartsheet allows you to put the milestones in, put the task within the milestones in. It allows you to have dependencies, the dependent tasks. It allows you to track how you're doing according to schedule. It allows you to assign tasks to one or more parties. So it's a really rich tool that is inexpensive and easy to use, and I find it easier than Microsoft Project. There's also a number of tools in the market that you can use to collaborate. And those are tools like Monday.com, tools like Trello, Jira, what have you. So there's any number of tools out there that some of them are free, and that's good. We all like free. And some of them cost a bit each and every month or annually to use, but they're not going to break the bank. So I think we've got a lot of tools available to us, and don't forget about your relationship with Connecting Up as well, who are fantastic at bringing those tools at deep discounts to our sector.
Lovely, thank you very much. All right, we got a questions from Rachel. Do you have any advice for working with staff resistant to change in technology?
Sure. I'm just going to put my my contact details up there on the screen in case somebody's too shy to ask a question. They can reach out to me by phone or email at their leisure or after the webinar if they think of something. So resistance to change, yes. I'm dealing with an organization right now that is resistant to change. The board wants them to adopt some technology, but the staff are sort of being dragged, kicking and screaming, if I'm honest. So I think it's important during a project to have a communications and change plan. And I call it communications and change because a change management plan sounds scary and it sounds complex. This plan is really nothing more than all of the steps you're going to take against a schedule to bring people along on the journey. Some of the best success that I've had and that others have had are people who are perhaps older and they believe that technology is too complex and they're very used to the technology set that they're using today, and so they find it difficult to transform. I oftentimes think of my late mother when she was in her final job at a hospital. She really struggled adopting the new admission software that was coming into play at this particular hospital in the United States. And I get that, you know, people get used to something, whether they're young or they're of a certain age, they get used to something and they find it difficult to change. So your change and your comms plan is vital to bring people along, and some of those people who are most resistant today will become your biggest cheerleaders mid-project or the end of the project. I had a situation in Queensland the day that I walked in to launch the project as a supplier. This woman said to me, "I'm an old person. You're not going to get me to use this. I'm not going to understand this. I'm scared. And I'm just warning you now." I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but that was the spirit of the conversation. This particular woman ended up becoming a consultant on the software that I implemented for this organization. And she's now doing what I do for a living. And I think anything is possible. Change is possible if you do it in the right way, if you approach people in the right way. And that's not hitting them over the head, but it's bringing them along on the journey, getting them to participate in the journey. Don't just build it and believe that they're going to come, because they won't. You must involve them at each step of the way, including selecting the technology. I hope that helps.
Lovely, thank you very much. All right, so thank you for all the questions. That's very interactive, and we got some really interesting and great questions. As Stephen just mentioned, if you have some other questions that you thought of after the webinar, feel free to contact Stephen by email. And again, this presentation and also the recording will be sent to you in 1 to 2 business days. So don't worry about if you would like to refresh and if you would like to study some of the highlights. All right, so before we finish, Stephen, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think I've included everything in the presentation. I would just welcome any of you to reach out to me. That's fine. I am in the United States right now, and it is approaching 10 o'clock at night. So if I don't get back to you, should you reach out to me today, I will get back to you in the following days. I'm back in Australia on Sunday, and I typically do respond to emails and phone calls same day. So do send me a text, an email, or pick up the phone and call me. I'm happy to help you and answer any questions that you might have following the webinar. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to speak with all of you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your generous support to the sector and also your contribution and effort, because we are really glad to have Stephen. He's in US and he's still willing to contribute to the society, even the time is not ideal. All right, thank you so much again, Stephen, and all of you for joining today's sections. I hope you have fruitful sections, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye now.